Hello everyone and welcome to Casey Cutting Your Libraries event partnering with the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria. My name is Moira and I'm here with my colleague Ivy today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we present and deliver our program here today, the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We're celebrating NAIDOC Week and this year's theme is Always Was, Always Will Be. During this week of NAIDOC, Casey Carninia Libraries will host a series of podcasts, story times, talks and more to recognise that First Nations people have occupied and cared for this continent for over 65,000 years. Today's event, we have the pleasure of hosting Bush Foods for the Backyard, and we'll be joined by Royal Botanic Garden Victoria's Aboriginal Learning Facilitators for a virtual tour through the Cranbourne Botanic Gardens to explore and learn about common bush food plants that you can grow in your own backyard.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Ivy. I'm the Library Has Legs librarian at Cranbourne Library. I would like to introduce you to Jaffa. Janine is a proud Dja Dja Wurrung woman. She's worked at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Cranbourne for 7 years, mostly as an Aboriginal learning facilitator for the Bali Kulin Bush Playgroup, teaching local Bunwurrung language and culture. She also delivers a variety of education programs at the gardens, including Aboriginal cultural programs. She's been creating and delivering NAIDOC programs for many years. She's passionate about sharing culture and plant knowledge. Steve Ulula Parker is a proud Bunwurrung traditional owner and lives on country on Malau, Phillip Island. He's worked at the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria as an Aboriginal learning facilitator for the past 2 years, where he's responsible for developing and delivering a range of nature-based programs for school and community groups. In addition to his work at Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria, Steve is also an accomplished artist with exhibitions and artwork inspired by his connection to country displayed across Phillip Island and beyond. I'll just hand over to this team here. Okay, you guys are live.
Hello.
Woman Jack, everyone. My name's Steve Ulula Parker. I'm a learning facilitator at the Royal Botanical Gardens here in Cranbourne, and today we're on Bunwurrung country. First, I'd like to acknowledge my elders, both past and present, and also the emerging leaders of today, the younger generation coming up. I'd like to pay my respects to Aunty Caroline Briggs, our senior elder and international recognised elder for the Bunwurrung. So, Woman Jacka, that means welcome in our Bunwurrung language. I'd just like to talk quickly about the country that we are on, because our theme this year for NAIDOC is Always Was, Always Will Be Aboriginal Land. So our country runs from Werribee River in Melbourne, around that big, beautiful bay that you might know as Port Phillip Bay. We call that Nerm in our language. And then it stretches all the way down to the peninsula there, and then comes around the second bay that you might know as Western Port Bay. We call that Murrumbik in our language. And then that's where that beautiful island that I live on, which we call Malau, which you might know as Phillip Island. And our country stretches in as far as Dandenong, and then runs down kind of the South Gippsland Highway all the way down to a place that you might know as Wilson's Prom, which we call Wamoon in our language. So I just want to tell you that we ask 2 promises of visitors on our land and people that are on our country, and that is to respect the Bupaps, the children, and also to respect the Big Burunga, which is our land and country. And in doing so, our creator, who travels as Bunjil, as a wedge-tailed eagle, will give you safe passage. So I'd like to welcome you in traditional language. So Woman Jacka, Merrimer Bekbek, Atwalam, Manyam Bulat, Woman Jacka, to Bunwurrung Bararunga, and welcome to 2020 NAIDOC event at the Royal Botanical Gardens in Cranbourne. And always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I'd like to pass it over to Jaffa, my co-worker here, and deadly co-worker. So I'll pass it over to Jaffa.
Blomandeka, Marambik Jaffa. Welcome. My name's Jaffa and I work here at this beautiful Royal Botanic Gardens in Cranbourne. Now, the Royal Botanic Gardens consists of 363 hectares in total of bushland and the Australia Gardens. So the Australia Gardens that we're in today is only 15 hectares of that total area. So majority of our gardens is actually native bushland, so untouched native bushland. But we've got many, many animals like koalas and kangaroos and wallabies, plus our little bandicoots and things like that in there as well, and many native foods. But today what we're going to look at is some of the foods that we have here in what we call our how-to garden, that a lot of people come here and they tend to sort of just walk past this section. And I think that it's a bit of a shame because we've got some beautiful things here to show you today. So what I'd like to do is to start off with one that most people should know really, really well, and that is the macadamia nut. Before I do that, I just want to let you know that, because people might ask, what is a bush food? And a bush food is actually any native plant or animal that you can eat. So that's an Australian bush food. So we're going to start off, if you follow me, to this beautiful plant. This is a macadamia nut. Now, these take a long time to grow. They get up to about 20 metres, but they also have one that they've designed that is called lots of nuts, and it only grows to about 4 metres. So if you've got a small yard, you can also grow your own macadamia nut tree, but it does take about 6 years before you actually get any nuts on it. Now, we're fortunate here today. We have, so this is what it starts off as. It drops off the tree, and you'll see that it's got this outer husk. And the outer husk then opens up, and you get what you're more used to, which is this nut inside that if I try really hard, I can pull out, and you'll see that that is our macadamia nut. So it's got a very hard shell on the outside, which is very useful for storage. So these can be stored for up to a year to be eaten later on. And Aboriginals used to do that so that we could have them later on. They're a very high proportion, or the most oil is in these. And they also have a lot of fat in them as well, which is really good for eating. So if I smash this open, and the Aboriginals would do that just with a rock, smash it open, inside would be a beautiful, sweet, soft nut. Okay, so, and that's with it just plain. Of course, there are people out there who prefer to salt them and roast them as well. So you can chuck them on a fire and roast them as well, and they're beautiful. Okay, so that's our macadamia nut tree. So we collect them when they fall to the ground.
So that's in summer, is it, Jaffa?
Beg your pardon?
Is that in the warmer months when the nuts are ready?
That's around now. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're talking about now, which is like November, December. So in the Boomerang seasons, we're in what's called Buat Guru, which is grass flowering season. And this is a season when they would be dropping to the ground. And so you could, if you had them in your garden and so you had just lawn underneath, you could rake them up, store them up until you wanted to use them. Okay.
How small was that tree when it was planted, roughly? How small would it have been? And it took 6 years to get that big.
They actually plant them as advanced plants, but they would probably only be no taller than me. So I'm like short, but I'm about $1.52 m. So so they would grow, put in advanced plants to start with, and it's taken this long for it to get to this. So it's been a number of years.
Yeah.
We also have another one here, so it's a different type. That's a Queensland nut that hasn't actually got any nuts on it yet, because you've got to remember these plants will actually not grow as fast or as big in Victoria as they do where they come from. So these are from the tropics of Queensland.
Oh, okay.
So they would grow a lot faster
Yep.
than they do here. So yeah. Any more questions?
Not at this point. Ivy, did you have any questions?
I do. I just wondered if they have, being from Queensland, from the tropics, do they need a lot of water?
They can do when they're getting started, but here at the gardens now, we have irrigation here, but they're not too bad. In the summer months, I suppose they need more water, but they're doing quite well. The hardest thing would be the leaves themselves. So if they're in a very open, sunny position, such as where they are now, they might get burnt a little bit. But once they're established, that's okay.
So choose your spot wisely.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
How do they cope with frost, Jaffa?
They seem to be fine, actually,
Okay.
because what we've done is we've put them so that they're in open areas, so it's open around them. And with frost, you find that a lot of the time you need that air around it to prevent the frost.
Yeah.
Whereas when things are tightly packed together, they're more sort of they're more inclined to get frost, to pop that sort of frost. So a lot of your smaller plants that are very, like if these were put into like a type of a large hedge or something, they'd be more likely to get the frost to get to them, and not be as obviously then that you wouldn't get as many nuts on them as well. Okay, so
Great.
I'm going to pass over to Steve now, who's going to tell you about another wonderful plant.
Thanks a lot, Jaffa. Very interesting. Here we've got in the same garden, pretty close to the Macadamia tree, we've got the lemon aspen tree. Now this tree can grow. It's known as a rainforest lemon, I suppose. It's a type of citrus. It creates a small edible fruit, which I'll show you here.
Oh, that is small.
Very small. And usually it grows around autumn to December, or August to December. It can grow up to, the fruits are about 3 to 4 centimetres in diameter. It creates a small white flower, and it's summer to early autumn that the fruit starts coming out. And when the fruits start dropping on the ground, it's usually when they're ready. So they do come from sort of more of the rainforesty areas up north. They've known to grow in the rainforest up to about 30 metres, but they grow to about 7 to 10 metres high, just in the normal areas down here. The best way to put these in your garden is to have them in an openish area that gets not too much wind, and probably you can have it in half shade and half sun, but you can have them in the open. But they do say not to have them in frosty areas. But in Victoria alone at the moment, I find that our weather's actually heating up quite a bit. I think we've only had 1 or 2 frosts in the last 12 months or something like that. So it's I think it's going to be all right within Victoria. But when you just in here, I think I'm not sure our cameraman got it, but just in here you can see a couple of them fruiting there, and they'll go a lot more yellow when they're ready to drop. You can use them in different cookings. They're high in different vitamins, vitamin C, also calcium, and while we're here, we've got our second plant down the bottom here, which is called the Middenberry. This plant is quite special to our, it's quite a very popular one with our First Nations people right across the country. This one's a bit of a ground shrub. You can use as a ground shrub or into a hedge-like kind of bush. And what you can see here on these leaves, you can see these little white flowering buds.
Oh,
Just
yes.
there.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
they come out into a nice round little berry, like probably about the size of a bit smaller than a blueberry. They come out white and they've got purple speckles all over them. They're a favourite one with all our first traditional owner groups, as they're a nice, easy fruit to eat, nice and sweet. And that's very high in vitamin C as well. Also calcium, and there's got some really healthy outcomes from it. There's not much sugar in it, or if there is sugar, it's a natural sugar. You can use those in your salads or even in fruit salads with your desserts. I know here at work when we see them blooming, we'll always pick them on the way past. So I'm always fighting with Jaffa over like ones around there.
Steve, with the lemon aspen, so that what sort of flavour the fruit from that, is that a citrusy, lemony flavour?
The lemony citrusy gives you a bit of a taste between lemon, little bits of myrtle, eucalyptus, sort of fused together. It's a very sweet, soury sort of taste from memory. It's been a couple of months since I've been in the gardens and actually had a taste of them, but they are quite citrusy and juicy. And then the berries down here, they're pretty much like a blueberry. Probably not
Lots
as
of different flavours. Yeah,
it's just slightly different. It's got your eucalyptus sort of fused taste with our Australian bush foods. That's what I reckon.
And does that covers the ground there? Is that looks like a really good ground cover as well?
Yeah, it is. It's a good ground cover. It grows up to about probably just under a metre high, about 700 mils high, sort of, which is probably about waist height on a really good bushy plant. And the times of year that comes out is around the autumn time. It's high in vitamin C, dietary fibre, iron. So
great.
It's a real low maintenance one for your garden. You put them in. You can as soon as you put them in, water them, and then they kind of take care of themselves. But through the hotter months, I suppose you make sure you do water them in the morning.
They would the Middenberry would also keep the moisture in for the lemon aspen, wouldn't it? Yeah,
well, we've got this one here. We've actually got a bit open underneath the trunk, so it does get airflow through there, under there. I find they're good for like your hedge type sort of garden beds, and good one to keep that moisture in around the bottom of your tree, I suppose, as well. You don't want too much drawing all that water out from the plant. So
fantastic.
Any more questions?
Not at this stage.
I've got one.
Oh, Ivy's got one.
Sorry, I just wondered about the citrus, the lemon aspen. Do you have to? Is it like a finger lime where you peel it and open it up for the inside, or do you use it more like a kumquat where you can eat the whole thing?
Yeah, I've opened them up, and they're kind of like what you were saying. You can open them up and just sort of suck the juices out and the insides. I haven't eaten them raw, like full. Yeah, but they're good. You can put them in cooking. I suppose your cakes, different cakes and different lemon cakes, I suppose.
Yeah, so you could use the skin for like in a cake.
I'd say so, yeah. And I'd say that skin would give you. It's probably got some really high proteins and different things in it in that skin. Yeah. So I think we might hand it over to Jaffa now. We'll take you over here.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, everybody. So I'm over here at one of our very popular plants that you might all know about because it's become the the it word when it comes to bush foods. And this one is the lemon myrtle. Now, this is the lemon myrtle. There are actually other myrtles. There's a white myrtle, there's a licorice myrtle, and there's a cinnamon myrtle. But today I'm here to talk about this one. So this is the lemon myrtle, and as you can see here, it's actually been made into a hedge. Now, I wouldn't suggest that everyone go ahead and do this. There's approximately 30 plants that make up this hedge here, and it's been done over a number of years. So it is something for the professional. You could do something like this, and it works really well. Now, what we actually do with this plant, oh, sorry, I forgot to say that it naturally grows in like New South Wales as like a small shrub. And we do have a couple of them here in the gardens as well that are like little sort of shrubs as well, but they grow fairly slowly. So what we do here is we can use these leaves and we can just use them as they are. So I just pick them off, crush them up, and oh, if only you could smell through the camera. They smell absolutely divine. So we can crush that up and we can put that into a drink, and it would give it that sort of lemony flavour. So just like this. But the other thing we can do is we can actually dry them out. So we could get, especially with this hedge, we can come along and we can like do a whole lot on the hedge, dry them out, crush them up, and store them. And the idea of crushing them up and storing them is that it keeps all the oils inside, so that it keeps the goodness inside. And you can use these and the flowers. We see that we've got some flowers in here as well.
Oh, yes, yes, can see those.
Yep. So we can use these for not just drinks and cordials, teas, things like that, but also for flavouring. So if they're crushed up really small, you can make all sorts of cakes, muffins, and add it to anything that you want. But because of the toxins, because of the goodness in them, you can also, you'll find that these are mixed with like eucalyptus and used as antiseptics. They're also put into lotions because they're really good like for the skin, so to keep your skin nice as well, and many other things. It's the it plant at the moment as far as good foods are concerned. So
it certainly has multiple uses, that one, and it's attractive.
Certainly does, yeah. It is a good one to put in your garden if you've got like the space for it. But even one plant, because they don't, like, they're not really fast growing, as most plants that are from other states aren't in Melbourne. It's a good one to just have, and you only need to pick one or two like leaves every now and again to have a drink or to crush up and have in something. Okay, so
Great.
Another really popular plant that you might know of is this one here, which is a really easy plant to grow, and this is the native spinach or warrigal greens. So this plant, as you can see here, is in a raised garden bed. It's low growing plant, and it's really spreads a lot. It's fast growing, easy to look after, and it can grow like in full sun like here, or it can also be in a bit of shade as well if you want it to be sort of like on a border somewhere. So it can be in a pot as well, or it can just grow like within your garden too. So with this one, you just use it like you would spinach, and so you blanch it, So you would put it into a pot of water. You would boil it. Now, the idea of doing that is because it has toxins in it. So if you ate too much of this raw, you could become very ill. So the idea is that you blanch it, and that means that you take out the toxins. So you do that for about 3 minutes, and then you rinse it off with cold water. And then you have your beautiful warrigal greens to
I'm glad
to
you
eat.
mentioned that, Jaffa, because I was going to say, well, spinach, you could probably put that in a salad, but I'm very glad that you mentioned that you have to do that first.
Yes. So that's the idea. And it's better to have the fresher, newer leaves, and not use these like older sort of bases of the plant as well.
Okay.
So just pick off all the top sort of fresh leaves, and it's full of antioxidants. Full of vitamins and minerals. A really, really good plant to have in your diet.
And that one's a little bit easier to grow, is it? That one easier to grow?
It's so easy to grow that it grows like a weed.
Ah.
So yes, so you could, if you wanted to, if it was getting like a bit leggy, so like you see here, it's getting a bit, so the stems are getting a bit fat. You can always like thin it out, pull out some bits, and it will grow back again, and you'll get beautiful young leaves and that to use.
Great. Ivy, did you have any questions about the warrigal greens?
Oh, I was just going to ask if it's a bit like lettuce where it will go to seed and you've got to sort of pull it back a bit or replant it. But I think you've answered it in that last question there where you trim it back. Is that right? You just keep trimming it?
Yeah. Yes, pretty much, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all right. So I'm going to hand you over to Steve now.
G'day. Now, over here we're going to have a bit of a chat about the Banksia tree. Just here, you'll see, I think everybody's seen a Banksia tree. Brings off a nice little flower like these, maybe red or yellows.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. In our Binbudang language, we call the Banksia tree warak. So to us, to our First Nations people, we also use the tree for making different tools and artifacts. So fullaments like this that you can see, different like a bowl in a way. Also too, I've made different little bowls, smaller rounder bowls, clap sticks and all sorts from those. Also too, our kids used to use these nettles. You can use these as a hairbrush if you get a good one. So sometimes these nettles are really hard and I haven't got much hair, but they can use them as a hairbrush.
Wow, I never thought of that, but that's great. I've got one of those in my yard too.
There's around about 170 different species of the Banksia. They can grow quite high, up to 30 metres high, but you can get different species which are ground covers, which we have a lot of those smaller plants species within the gardens here. So this one here is, I think, the yellow flowered one, which is more like this one here.
Yep.
And then this one with a bigger nut is more of an older Banksia. I call it the ancient Banksia tree because the nuts are so big and long. They're kind of like big dinosaur flowers. There's a nice big one there. And then you get different species that are small ground covers which can grow up to, say, a metre high as a shrub or as a hedge. So
yeah, I love the shape of the leaves on the yellow one, Steve. They're really interesting. Serrated kind of leaf.
If they were a bit harder, you could possibly use them for a saw to cut your trees down, but I think the leaves are a bit soft.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
These are found everywhere around our country along the coastlines as well. There's, like I said, 170 different species. So I suppose in each different state. But they're a great one to grow. You can do a bit of the care of them is to look after them at the start. The just get them settled, and then from there they're pretty self maintenance as they grow into big adult trees.
With the wood that you get from the tree to make the bowls, how is it a very dense wood, or is it easy to work with?
I found it's quite softish and it becomes quite light once you dry it out. I've been drying some out to make some tools at the moment. I'm not sure. I think the Banksia tree that I got it off was one of these type.
Yeah.
And when they're quite old, yeah, they can be pretty soft, and but once you dry them out, they do become quite light. So they're good in that way. If you're making tools out of them, they can be light carrying. But if you're looking to make different things that you need heaviness in, they're probably not the best. Like your clapsticks or something like that. They're probably not ideal because they end up drying out quite light, and they don't give you a good ting sound when you hit them.
Fantastic.
So just while we're here, I was going to show you this other plant, which is the pig face, just here.
Yep.
And we call this one kakalala in our language. There's quite a few different species of these, of the pig face. There's not too many, but they're like a ground sort of creeper. Quite easily to look after once you've got them established. There's three types. There's the inland pig face, there's the coastal pig face, and the rosy pig face. You can eat these raw or eat them up boiled as greens. You can apply in juices, and also to the citrus from these here. You can use for, say, different sandfly bites, burns. It can minimise the pain in that.
That's great.
They're a plumpy, juicy leaf. The taste of them is sweet, salty taste. The saltier, they're a lot more saltier as you get down towards the coastline. You can put them in dishes with meats to give them that salt flavour. You put them in salads, and also savoury dishes.
Do they have flowers, Steve?
Yeah, it's they do. Some of them do have a little white flower from memory. I think this one is the one that the white flower comes up.
Yep.
And then these leaves you can break off, and they're like a citrusy succulent. And that's where you can, if you're down the beach or you're hydrated also, you can use that to hydrate yourself. Like I said, to like sandfly bites or any burns or anything like that.
Well, that's really handy to know.
Yeah, a little bit of, say, sunburn as well, you can put on the skin, and that really soothes it also.
Similar to like you would use an aloe.
Yeah, it's like an aloe vera plant.
Yeah.
I know if I've on the beach, when I'm down the beach at home, if I'm feeling a bit burnt, if I see some of that, I'll grab a bit and put on my lips or around the face to cool down. Also, I know in Hawaii they've got one similar that they use on their reef cuts, so it takes all the bacteria out of that cut when they get reef cuts. I think that would be very similar. I haven't tried it yet, but I will.
Great, thank you.
Now we're going to head you over to Jaffa.
Yep. Hi. I just wanted to add one thing to what Steve was saying about the pig face, and that is if you've got an area in your garden where you're having trouble, like an escarpment or an area where you're having trouble keeping the soil there, pig face is a really good one, and it will actually help to keep the soil in place, even if it's really sandy. So you would have seen that like along beaches where it's up on escarpments and it's right along and it keeps them in place. So I just thought,
stops erosion. It helps prevent erosion.
Yeah, it stops the erosion. So
right.
Yeah, I just thought for some people, depending upon where they live, that would be a really good plant with that multiple use. So yeah, but we're going to head over now. I wanted to show you a beautiful plant here. This is the hibiscus. Now, this particular hibiscus, you can see is just starting to flower. So there's the little flower buds.
Yep.
Now these are very slow growing. This is an actual a hybrid, so it's been made to be small. We also have larger ones here as well that have beautiful big pink flowers, and we use them for making like a tea. So it can be like a hot tea, for a cordial. We can make jams into it, from it, and things like that. But there are all different sorts. So depending upon what sort of garden you have or what soil type you have, you can choose one of these that's suitable for you. So if we have a look, you can tell that it's a hybrid because the leaves, so one of the leaves you'll see here is this is the normal leaf for this particular one.
Yep.
But then if we look at the older leaves, we can see that it looks more like, where's one? In here.
Oh, yes, I can see slightly different colour, lighter green.
Yeah, and it also, well, to me, it's like a kangaroo paw.
Oh, actually, I was looking at something else. Yeah, it does.
So this
Yellow.
here, right,
Yep.
the yellow one. There are green ones as well, but that one really stands out. So these are really good plants to have in your garden. They do not like it in full sun. They do need some shade. So that's one of the things that, like you can see here, they will eventually grow up and they'll be like a nice little hedge. So that's another plant that you can sort of make into a hedge as well. Or you can have, we've got some big ones here in the gardens that are a couple of meters tall as well. And they look absolutely beautiful in amongst other like trees and things as well. Or, you know, as a backdrop. So in the corner, like in a back corner of your garden or somewhere like that, where those beautiful big like Hawaii-like flowers come out.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. So is there any questions on that?
I don't have any questions about that one at the moment. We're going really well for time too, so we'll have enough time for questions. So we're on to the last plant.
I might take you over to one of my favourite plants that is not just for bush foods, but I also use it, and it is used quite a lot by First Nations people for weaving. Okay.
Oh, great.
So if we come along here, and we'll find that we've got Steve over here waiting for us.
Here's some plants I've prepared earlier.
Yep. Okay, so the lamandra is one that's a really great food source. So, and we're lucky enough that this one here today, we can see, you come in, you can see that we've got some beautiful seeds on here.
Yep.
And those yellow seeds, we would pull them off. We'd add some water to them, crush it around, make like a paste that you could actually eat just like that, or like damper, you could actually put it in a fire and make it like a little damper. Or like a cake sort of thing.
So they're also dried out to make a flour as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of our First Nations right around the country have different grasses like this in each state and different environments. And our people would, from all those different grasses and so on, and the different species, they would make a flour. Even when they were poisoned, they'd find ways of extracting the poisons out of them and then turning it into a flour that we could make from breads and doughs from.
And quite often, these things, like I was talking like with the macadamia, as far as storing it, these are the sorts of things that would be stored as well. So, like I said in the beginning, it is Buat Guru season, which is grass flowering season. So soon, all the grasses and sedges like this will be flowering and seeding, and then we'll be able to collect all that seed and store it or crush it up and use it, cook it up and use it as a really healthy food source.
So
Now, another thing that we did with these was, which a lot of people might know of, is by pulling out one of these at the end where it's whiter, we used to actually eat that. We used to chew on that, on the white end bit, especially if you're a bit thirsty. But you would only take it if the plant gave it to you. So a lot of people would get themselves all cut up trying to pull out this reed or part of the lamandra. And it tastes like peas. So it's very sweet and tastes like peas. So yeah, if you try it yourself.
You just got to make sure that it just comes away easily. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, yes. Yep.
Wow, that's beautiful. And those grasses grow in many different areas of Australia, did you say?
Yes, they do. So there's so as far as planting these in your backyard, there are lots of different varieties. You've got very small ones that you can buy that only get 30 centimeters. Great hedging plants. Great to put. Some of them will grow really well underneath underneath trees and stuff as well. Yep. And they're also great as, even if you've got just an area where you want to showcase a tree and you have these around the base. They're also really good. You can see here, this is one strand that I've got, and these are used for weaving as well, so we can use these to weave, and quite a lot.
Weave a nice little basket for yourself to collect
all the seeds. That's right. And quite often these days, a lot of people actually grow these in their own backyard, so that they don't have, like First Nations people, so they don't have to go so far anymore to collect their pieces to weave with. So yeah.
Thank you so much for the tour today. We're just going to see if anybody's got any questions. So if anybody watching has any questions about anything that Steve and Jaffa have shown us today, there's so much, and obviously there's plenty more, but we only have a certain amount of time to see certain things. And it's great that it's a beautiful day down there at the gardens in Cranbourne, and we're just waiting on. Oh, we do have some questions.
So, something working here. It's really cool because each seasons, with our Bunbudang seasons, is about 8, and every time you come in the garden, especially after we've been not here for maybe 6 months or something, it's always changing. So maybe come here once every quarter or something like that, and you'll see the different changes in the gardens and the different seasons from the plants. So it's an amazing place. Well, every plant in here is that's native to Australia. So it's a great learning place for all, from very young right up to your senior as well.
And we're really grateful to you guys today.
In the Australia gardens are actually rare and threatened species that our staff go and collect, and we have in our collections here to preserve them.
And I'm sure after this there'll be lots of people who'll be really, really keen to come down. We do have a question, an interesting question about fertilisers. Any particular fertilisers or minerals needed for salty types of edibles to keep them salty, or is there enough of that in most soils? That's a pretty full-on question.
It is, and it will depend on where you live as to whether or not it's going to be. I mean, so if you're talking about the pig face, for instance, so the seaside pig face is salty anyway.
Yes.
and it will always retain some of that saltiness. So
And it's even more saltier when you got them on the coast.
it'll just be a lot richer in salt if you're on the coast than it will if you're inland using it. But with native Australian plants, I would never use fertilizers or anything like that. There's no
I
need.
don't need to.
If you pick the right plants for your garden, you can't go wrong.
Yep.
So it's a matter of making sure that when you purchase your plants, that you talk to the nursery people about where you live, or research it yourself. We have some material for you to look at after this, and just make sure that you pick the right plants for your spot rather than trying to fit a plant into your garden. That's not necessarily appropriate.
So somebody else has asked, what is the best way to acquire a lot of these plants? Where do you get them? That might lead into something else now.
Well, here at the gardens, we do have friends of the gardens that do a lot of growing, and they do have sales at the nursery here. At the moment, I don't think it's running consistently like it used to.
Yeah.
No, but if you check our website, you'll be able to know when these sorts of things happen. But also, no matter where you live, you should have a native nursery near you. So I would just look up Google, local nursery near you,
Local native nursery.
Yeah. And go from there.
Great.
Because they will be the best ones for your particular area.
Great. Okay, Ivy, did you have any questions? We don't have any more at this stage, but I thought I'll ask Ivy.
I just wanted to sort of ask, leading into the virtual garden, ask for those of us listening who don't live close by to the gardens, who might be sort of out of the Melbourne area and not be able to visit in person, where would you recommend going on the website to have a look at some of the garden areas?
So we have produced some virtual garden experiences on our website. So both at the Melbourne Gardens, and we're doing the Australia Gardens where we are now. So there's those sorts of things that you will be able to look at to get those experiences. And it's a matter of just jumping on the website every now and again and just seeing what's there, because we're always putting new things on there for you to see.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. We really enjoyed this virtual tour, and you've given us some really great references, which we'll post a few references that you can get through the library, and also the gardens as well, so with their website link. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute privilege to be able to cross live. Oh, we've got one more question. Yep. Okay, one more question before we go. What's a good native to attract bees? I think it's bees all year round.
Anything that flowers, really.
Yeah, Banksias.
The
lemon aspen.
I suppose from what we've shown you, that any of the ones that like the Banksia is probably one of the biggest ones that will attract the most bees to your garden.
The lemon aspens and the Middenberries will attract different birds as well.
Yeah.
But also insects.
Okay.
We just had one more question coming through on Facebook. It's a comment and a question. When I was a child, we called the plants covering Oliver's Hill and Frankston pigface. They had bright pink or yellow or white flowers. There were many petalled. Would that have been the same plant?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be pigface, yeah.
Yeah, I did have something that had purple flowers as well that looked very, very similar to what you were showing us before, Steve. And it got a very strange little white sort of stuff on it, but I don't know what that was. But
yeah.
Maybe you can tell me, give me a few tips on that
can eat
later.
That's another tucker you can eat. Nice and
Oh,
sweet.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful for you to join you both in the gardens. And
thank you, everyone, for watching. Just remember, always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy Natal.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.